Bear down, Chicago Bears. The scouting combine is now open for business. The evaluation of the players is about to commence, and we have a breaking story already. Peter King. If you don't know who that is, he is one of those draft analysts. So here's what happened. Peter King says that the new trade winds are now saying that the Chicago Bears most likely are now going to trade the number one pick. Dealing the number one pick in the 2024 NFL draft seems to be the way the wind is blowing for the Chicago Bears, according to the NBC Sport caster Peter King. King proceeded to sketch out a scenario where the Bears trade back twice in the first round and wind up with the 8th and ninth selections, along with 2 additional second round picks and a valuable 2025 draft compensation. This is something, guys, that I've been showing you almost every day when I do these drafts for you or with you, if you will. And we keep coming back to the same thing. The Bears do not, grabbing Caleb Williams at this point does not seem like the move for the Chicago Bears. And look, you might consider Caleb Williams to be a generational talent. You're wrong. But that doesn't mean that he's not a good quarterback. That doesn't mean that he can't be a great quarterback. Doesn't mean that he doesn't check a whole lot of boxes and would be the envy of almost any and every team. It does not mean that at all. What I mean is, this is not the next Patrick Mahomes, because we didn't even know Patrick Mahomes was Patrick Mahomes until Patrick Mahomes became Patrick Mahomes. It was just a proper name at one point. It wasn't a verb. Remember that. So let's remember what it is that we're dealing with here. This guy is still speculative at his very best. He's still speculative. But Fox Sports' Peter Schrager brought up some of the same general hypothetical Monday on Good Morning Football already this morning. As I detail here, Ryan Poles can be quite a chess master this year. His third combine, he could plot 2, 3 to 4 moves, and not just one, with a particularly strong quarterback draft class. Basically, the maximum number of draft picks. That's basically the maximum number that you can do in each round of draft picks per round. So every round in the modern, and every team should have a 7 choice coming in the draft. There's a maximum of 3. So 3 in the first round. You have a maximum of 3 in the first round, according to that. So, I mean, then the question becomes, what do you do? How do you create draft capital? How do you improve your team based on that? And look, I just want to say this, and I'm not knocking Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is, if he is the quarterback here, I'm going to hope that he becomes a generational talent. I'm going to hope that he becomes the next Aaron Rodgers, dare I say it, or the next Tom Brady. I'm going to hope that he becomes just like one of those guys, but I don't think that he is. I think that there are still problems and issues that need to be addressed for the mental makeup, because there's a lot of people who can do the job. There's a lot of people who can make all the throws. There's a lot of people who've been able to do that. But is it a tremendous upgrade? And if we do a tremendous upgrade at that position, does that make the team better? No, it doesn't. That's what really, I think, the whole thing comes down to, are the Chicago Bears a better team with Caleb Williams at quarterback, or are they a better team with, let's just say that Justin Fields is not as good as Caleb Williams. Let's just say that, for instance. Are they a better team with Justin Fields at quarterback, but Marvin Harrison at receiver and Brock Bowers at tight end and Jackson Powers Johnson at center and Darius Robinson at edge rusher, or Dallas Turner or Jared Verse, or pick an edge rusher? Are they a better team with Caleb Williams and 6 additional draft picks? Again, you do have that 9 picks, so you do have to at least accommodate for that 9 pick. Okay. So that's potentially Caleb Williams and, say, Rome Odunze. Is Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, I just assuming that Rome's going to be available at that spot. There's no guarantee that any one of these guys are going to be. I mean, you might end up with Xavier Worthy, something like that by that point, or you may end up having to take that edge rusher and you don't have a receiver, or you have to overpay for somebody like a Mike Evans, who came out yesterday and said, I want to stay in Tampa Bay. Does that mean that he's going to stay in Tampa Bay? Well, No, it does not. As a matter of fact, there's no accounting for what will happen. Just because he's had the most, I think he's had 8 1,000 yard seasons in a row now, the biggest streak of all time. It doesn't mean that he's still going to stay in Tampa Bay, and it doesn't mean that they're going to be willing to pay him. Doesn't mean that he's not going to be. So who becomes the receiver at that point? Because you just cost yourself that generational wide receiver. I just don't think that it I don't think that it merits that Caleb Williams makes the team better in the context that we would hope. I don't think that it makes the Chicago Bears so appreciably better by switching from Caleb Williams to Justin Fields. If again I say that Justin Fields is just an inferior guy to Caleb, if I'm saying that, if I say that, then there's no situation in which Caleb Williams to me is a better option in this draft. Again, I'm going to go back to it, and you guys have seen my drafts every single time. There's absolutely no circumstance. There's just no way for me to say that in any context that 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 this is a good draft for the Chicago Bears, unless you trade down and start to accumulate some picks. And that's exactly what I did today. You know what my play is. You should know what my play is by now. I want Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he's the generational talent in this draft, and that's the guy that I want to take. Okay. So the end. Now, next thing up, we do have another one, and that is Caleb is going to be a no throw at the scouting combine. So Caleb Williams has decided that he will not throw. And look, most of the time when you see something like this, then you know the answer. And the answer is he does not want to lose his draft stock. Why does the number one guy typically not throw at the combine? Because he has everything to lose and nothing to gain. So in the event, however rare it may be, that say Drake May comes up and says that he's going to he's going to come in and throw, is there a possibility that Drake May passes him? Even if he has an outstanding day? Not really. Like, it would be very rare to see something like that happen. All Drake May is going to do is reaffirm his number 2 status. Now, if he knows that he's number 2, he may not throw either. So then the question is, who's going to be throwing there? Well, Jaden Daniels, I do believe, is going to, but I mean, you the only thing, if you're number 1, you're going to do by going to the combine is ruin your draft stock, because not seeing it at this point and looking at whatever the tape is already that got you to number 1, that's your sales tape right there. And if it ends up getting you number 2, it's okay. You're going to be a free agent in 4 or 5 years anyway. You're still going to get your big money contract after you got your big money contract, because you just came out of your big money contract at USC. You know what I mean? Like, trust me, nobody's worried about money at this level and at this point. But so Caleb Williams has decided he's not going to throw at the scouting combine. Per Ian Rappaport of NFL Media, he's going to defer throwing and other physical activities until his pro day workout. It's a smart move. He has nothing to gain at this point. He's the number 1 pick. If he doesn't go first, he won't fall very far. In past years, folks who depend on the combine workouts for content would grouse about a player choosing not to throw. They try to goad the player into performing by questioning their desire to compete, but it's not a competition. Or if it is a competition, he already won the competition. He's already the number 1 presumptive pick. So he has nothing to gain by making any of these moves. So wishing Caleb well, certainly would like to see him throw, but we've already seen it. It's already on tape. If we want to go watch Caleb Williams throw, then we'll go watch him, throw interceptions to Notre Dame. I kid, by the way. Again, if Caleb Williams is my quarterback and we do draft him, then you know what I mean. I'm going to take all of that back and be like, yeah, man. Ha, 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 ha. Now, not to be outdone, by the way, there was another article that came up immediately afterwards. Same thing happening here. Polls trading the number 1 pick. So here we go. And this is I know nothing, but that seems to be the way the wind is blowing when I say the Bears could keep Justin Fields and should, and trade the first pick down once or twice and build the kind of supporting cast a team needs to contend. Suppose GM Ryan Poles traded the top pick down to Washington, which would then take Caleb Williams, and got the second pick and a second round pick and a 25 first round pick. Then suppose Poles traded the second pick to Atlanta at 8, and then the Falcons picked one of the other quarterbacks. In return, Chicago gets the 8th pick and Atlanta's second round pick and first round pick the next year. So there are some real intriguing options that you have right there. Now, I'm not going to say that one. I don't think that that's the case. I do not think that that's the case. Now, my question would simply be, what kind of draft capital could I get if I traded down to number two or if I traded down to number three? One of those two has to be the one that gives me that draft capital. And then when I get there, if I'm at number three and I get Marvin Harrison Jr., let's just say, for example, for me, let's just say that we have a tough draft here. Brock Bowers not available at that spot. You got maybe Dallas Turner is still available, or Luatu Latu. Like maybe you need to take an edge rusher or something like that. But what if you could get a trade down just a couple of spots and you could still pick up Darius Robinson in the second round, and then you move down just a little bit, and instead of getting your edge rusher, which you want in your second round, what if you move down just in that draft a little bit and you got Jackson Powers Johnson? What if you were able to do that? And by the way, I did not do that in my draft. I wasn't even thinking about that. That actually came up on the fly here, if you will. So it did not end up being the same way, if you will, but it was a good potential opportunity in my mind now that trade down and get something like that. So this could be, here's the idea here, right? This could be a crazy and historic haul. That's what people are saying. Like, and last night, I'll tell you this: I had a family member approach me because they watch and they asked me. They were like, "Dude, there's no way you've got to take Caleb Williams if you're the Chicago Bears and you got the number one draft pick 2 years in a row and you don't take that quarterback, then." You're disappointing the fan base. No, you're not. The fan base, 80% of the fan base, 81% of the fan base, in fact, wants Justin Fields to return. So you're not, you're, and if you are disappointing a fan base, you're disappointing a small minority of the fan base because generally speaking, 80% of the fans, they want to see Justin Fields run it back one more time. They don't care about well, you can't pass up the number one twice. Yeah, you can. If you're securing a bunch of draft picks and then you end up with the number two or number three or number four pick and you're moving your way down and you're getting you're improving your team and you're building for the future, you absolutely can. And it makes no sense that you wouldn't do that if you're comfortable with Justin Fields. That you have to be comfortable with. And again, 80% of the fans, they're real comfortable with him. Kevin Warren is real comfortable with him. Matt Eberflus is real comfortable with him. So, what are you going to do? It becomes the question. So, but let me know. Hit the like button. Make sure you hit the like button on the way in here. Mongo, by the way, is home now. So, in case anybody's been keeping track here, he's on IVs, and so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But as EV Warrior says, Poles doesn't care what the YouTube fans think. He's going to do what's best for the team. Right. So he's going to trade down. So we've decided that he's going to trade down. We got that. We figured that out already. Anyway, so again, all of the news coming out of the combine right now is that Poles is looking to trade down and he's looking to see what he can get for that number one pick right now. So we'll see over the next couple of days whether that plays out or not. Here's the thing. There may not even be a market. There may not even be an opportunity for that to happen. He might look at this and nobody wants to make that trade because they're just going to hold out for it. And if that becomes the case, consider here. And I don't think that I think that New England is the player that you would make the trade with, by the way, just for clarity. Because if you trade to the Washington Commanders, Washington could be sitting there saying, well, we don't want Caleb as much as that. Like we could take Drake May. Same thing. I think New England, they want the best player and they want somebody to build around. And if they think that guy is Caleb, they would be the motivated people to sell. And by the way, you can watch NFL. I think you watch NFL, the NFL Network. Yeah, it's not going to air until Thursday because there's the physical skills don't start. Like there's a bunch of stuff that you're not going to see, or you might be able to check it out at NFL.com. Watch. Quarterbacks are going to be throwing. So here's the schedule right now. Let's pop this up on the screen here. The NFL Network will show 4 days of live on-field drills from Thursday through Sunday. So you're going to get live on-field drills Thursday through Sunday. Thursday at 2 p.m., you're going to get, and this is going to be Central time, sorry. 2 p.m., you're going to get defensive linemen and linebackers. Friday at 2 p.m., you're going to get defensive backs and tight ends. Saturday at noon, you're going to get quarterbacks, receivers, and running back. And then Sunday at noon, you're going to get offensive linemen. So today, I think everybody's just kind of going through um, uh, they're going through whatever background checks and interviews with the teams and stuff like that went Monday through Wednesday. So then Thursday is when they're going to get on the field and they're going to really work their way through whatever it is. But again, polls rumor has it is already out here looking to make that move and looking to get that number one pick. So that again, and I'm going to come back to this because this is the important thing for me. The Bears only have 6 picks, and the question for me is, can you make a team? And by the way, you can. I should say this: you can make the team. I think even if you took Caleb Williams at number 1 and at number 9, you took Roma Dunze, Malik Neighbors, even Brock Bowers, you will have a better team um, for the offense. But I don't know that it's going to be because of the quarterback position. I don't, I think that it's possible, certainly, but you would at least still be able to get that wide receiver at the number 9 pick, and thus I think you would be an improved team overall. But you don't have a second round pick, which is where a lot of these really good under the radar sort of guys are. I think this is a really big, this is a really big issue. And G-Rod, I would agree that it's a good idea to trade down twice. The problem is missing Marvin Harrison Jr. So when you trade down twice, um, I mean, look, here's what we should recognize. We have 1 point, and look, here's the points. Matter of fact, let's go over the positions that the Bears need to deal with. And this is a free agency pool here. The Bears have got to fill, first of all, this position right here. The number 2 wide receiver. They've got to have a number 2 wide receiver, or DJ Moore becomes a number 2 wide receiver. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. On your team, like, why are we like this? This has got to be almost a no brainer at this point. Now, in free agency, here are the people that are going to be available. Okay, the Bears are part of a handful of NFL teams that need additional help at wide receiver, but Bears will not go after T. Higgins or Mike Evans, but everyone else should receive a call in the franchise bid to help DJ Moore. Chicago will lose Darnell Mooney to free agency, so that means no other returning wide receiver had over 200 yards. Curtis Samuel, Josh Reynolds, Michael Thomas, DJ Clark fit the profile of a wide receiver the Bears should sign. Samuel is the best second tier option on the market, but if he signs elsewhere, the Bears could look to Reynolds in an attempt to weaken their NFC North rival. Now, let me also state for the record, if you compare apples to apples and you look at Curtis Samuel versus Darnell Mooney is your better option. But we know what we're getting with Darnell Mooney, and we know that it just hasn't worked out so far. So, the question at this point becomes, should we go after Darnell Mooney or Curtis Samuel? Now, the thing is, when you look at the dollar value for each one of these guys, Darnell Mooney clocks in about 13 million. Curtis Samuel comes in quite a bit cheaper. So it is very possible that Curtis Samuel becomes the guy that we go out here looking for. But again, this is free agency. This is not the draft. So those are the guys that we're going to be looking for in that. Then you got to shore up the defensive line. Now, the Bears could lose 6 sacks worth of production in free agency. That's Yannick Ngakoue and Rasheem Green. Those totals speak to where the Bears must improve on defense. They need a nastier pass rusher, and it was a massive amount of salary cap space to chase Chris Jones. I don't think that we're going after Chris Jones, by the way. I do want to say that for the record. I don't think that Chris Jones, and by the way, it would be almost irresponsible of Ryan Poles to pay that much for a defensive tackle in that position when we do have some decent we already have some decent defensive tackles. The place that we have the biggest problem is that edge rusher position to collapse that pocket. The Bears were aggressive in the midseason trade market and added Montez Sweat, who then signed a contract extension. And you also have to sign Jalen Johnson. So adding someone of Jones' caliber to that pass rush would instantly improve. If Jones is not available, Brian Burns and Justin Matabuke should receive serious consideration. Brian Burns more of an edge. It's an edge guy. So that's exactly what you should be looking at. And at least after getting away from Chris Jones. And look, I don't. There's nothing against Chris Jones. if we could get Chris Jones, I would love to have Chris Jones on the team, but I wouldn't love to have Chris Jones at $33 million, because that would mean that we have one defensive tackle for 33 million and one edge rusher at 25 million. And then we would have another defensive back, a cornerback at probably 20 million. Like, that's a very expensive team suddenly. Plus, I'm pretty sure Tremaine Edwards getting 13 million already. Like, we've got a very expensive team here, which is why I don't like this, and I would build through the draft. But Chris Jones out there, Brian Burns. I would take Brian Burns, by the way. I like that idea, but again, I think that's in the 10 to 15 million range. At defensive back, Jalen Johnson is the top free agent heading out of Chicago. They can try to re-sign because they have 82 million worth of projected cap space. Now, I do think, by the way, that we've got 3, 4, 5, we've got 8 days by March 5th. I am pretty sure that we're going to franchise tag Jalen Johnson. We're going to pay him 18.8 million, and he's going to either have to choose to play or he's going to have to choose to sit. So he's going to have to make a decision at that point to play on that 18.8 million franchise tag contract while they work on an additional deal. I do think that that's what's going to end up happening. That's the way that it looks so far. Now, at any moment, we could be graced with an announcement that they've made a deal, but I don't think that we are. I think that we're probably going to go into it with the franchise tag. We don't need a franchise tag for anything else. And if you're being shrewd right now, using the franchise tag on Jalen Johnson for that year and then trying to work in good faith on a new deal, that would be the optimal move right there. So I think that that's probably what the Bears are looking to do. Chicago is not a bad spot at corner with Kyler, Tyreek, but and again, they forgot to mention Terrell Smith, so who's also been very, very good. So the Bears could use some extra help at safety after the release of Eddie Jackson. After we get through with that, then and I think, by the way, that's another one that's going to be handled through the draft. So that's where we are. Those are the biggest positions of need right now. So now let's kind of break this out. So I did a draft. What is it that crazy women say? So I did a thing. I did a thing. Oh, and by the way, I want to point something out before we get started on my draft, which was a phenomenal draft. As a matter of fact, some people are calling it one of the greatest drafts of all time. I don't know if I would call it the greatest draft of all time, but I would probably call it the greatest draft of all time. I wanted to point out something here for you guys that just it's unbelievable, right? And that is this right here. Now, what I'm going to show you is this is Roshan Johnson. I wanted to point this out because you guys are control for different running backs. And the reason that every time we get this, I don't want a new running back. The reason that I'm wanting to stick with Khalil Herbert and Roshan Johnson is because I think these guys are really good. And I think that they've been underserved. And I don't think that they will continue to be. So I want to point out right now, that's Roshan Johnson right next to Justin Fields. Now watch him. He is going to take 2 blocks at one time. Right there. You see you got 2 rushers coming in, and he blocks both of them so that Justin Fields can complete that pass. These are the types of guys that we want to have. Those are the types of guys who make plays for their teams. Like, those are the people that we want to have doing this stuff for us. So shout out to Roshan Johnson for making it happen. So, but anyway, let's move on from free agency and let's get into the draft. And boom. Remember, this is what we currently have. And I want to point this out because I just don't like the way that this plays out. In the first round, the Bears have the number 1 overall pick, and then they have the number 9 overall pick. Then they have the number 75, the number 110, the number 122, and the 142. Now, if you are a fan of the 4th round, cool. You got a few picks there, but that is not going to turn this team into a Super Bowl contender. Now, I think we're a playoff contender no matter what. I think we are 100% going to be a playoff type team. Now, with that being the case, here's what I did on my draft so that you guys can see what the greatest draft ever done looks like. So fully realized, this is what I did. At the number 1 pick, I traded down, and instead of going, and many times I've gone with the number 2 overall, And then I've been able to trade down to the number 3. So what happened was I traded to the number 2 for the Washington Commanders, which is why I got the number 36 pick. And then I traded down to the uh, the 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 New England Patriots with the number 3 pick so that they could take a quarterback too. And then I got that number 3 pick, and I got the number 34 and the number 36 pick in this draft. So with my number 3 selection, I took Marvin Harrison Jr. Then I believe I have my generational talent right there. Then I moved down to number 9 in the draft. And by the way, I have 10 draft picks here, and or I'm sorry, 11 draft picks here. And I got a Washington first round pick and a New England second round pick for next year. So I've loaded up my draft and I've loaded up next year's draft. Marvin Harrison Jr. clocking in at number 3 for me. And then at number 9, who was available? Actually, 2 were available, Brock Bowers or Roma Dunze, but I've already got my wide receiver. I don't need another wide receiver if that's the case. And by the way, that's new for me. I've talked myself out of that because at first I was really like, let's just grab 2 wide receivers, but let's go with Brock Bowers at the number 9 position. And then I moved down at number 34 and I take Kingsley Suamatea, which is an offensive tackle. Now, I like Braxton Jones, but I do need somebody better at that position. And I recognize that. I do understand that. So I went ahead and I took an offensive tackle at that position. I'm assuming that that in some way the center position is going to be filled with Connor Williams or Aaron Brewer, most probably. So I feel like that's the move. So let's just say Kingsley Suamatea. And by the way, I did take a center. I do think Tanner Bodolini, and they got him down at the bottom portion of this draft at number 143. That is the center out of Wisconsin. By the way, number 1 run blocker. This guy is an elite run blocker. He does have short arms. I think they said his arms are only 33 inches long, which means that he's an okay pass protector, but he lacks the arm range to be an elite guy, which is why he's lower in the draft. So I took Kingsley Suamatea at the tackle position, and I'm relying again on center to be covered in free agency. And then at number 36, I took Darius Robinson. If you don't know who Darius Robinson is, then you got to learn about him really quickly because I think he's going to shoot up in this draft very quickly. He's an edge rusher from Missouri. He had 8.5 sacks in the last 9 games of the season. Was a player on every play. He was a big time body and he was a big time fighter for Missouri on their defense. So and he grades out very well. 6'5", 275 pounds. This is the big, lean, muscular, athletic type guy that you want to see as a bookend to Montez Sweat. And from what we've seen so far, motor that doesn't quit. So then at number 40, I took Tyler Nubin from Minnesota as a safety. So now we've replaced Eddie Jackson. Then I moved on to number 67, and I got Michael Hall Jr., a defensive tackle out of Ohio State. I don't need Chris Jones at defensive tackle. I just need to build a little bit of depth at tackle. So I addressed that by grabbing somebody from a team that plays tough competition. So I took Michael Hall, Ohio State defensive tackle. I'm going to put him behind. I think Justin Jones probably resigns. Andrew Billingsley obviously is going to be resigning Gervon Dexter and Andrew Pickens for a long period of time. So I need one more body to fill in there, whether Justin Jones is there or not. So I feel like I've shored up the defensive tackle position. Then I took Cooper Beebe, offensive guard out of Kansas State, also has some center experience, comes in the second round. So I've got my second round selection that might be able to play a little bit of center. I don't know if that's my guy or not. I couldn't get Zach Frazier. It was too far down for me to get Jackson Powers Johnson, and it was a bad selection at 34 and 36 and 40 to get Cedric Van Proppen from Georgia or to get Zach Frazier, who went a little bit earlier in the draft than I had expected. So I thought I had my center, and they threw me a curve. So I went for Cooper Beebe as offensive guard at number 68. Then I waited to number 104, and I got Blake Corum, running back out of Michigan. The idea here is he's going to be my number 4 running back behind Khalil Herbert, Roshan Johnson, and Travis Homer. So Blake Corum comes in. And then number 111, I still need to add depth because I'm losing a few wide receivers. So even in the draft, I'm picking up Marvin Harrison. I need another body out there, and that's going to be Jamari Thrash out of Louisville. Um, Speed guy, good hands, creates space. Came from a Division 2 to Division 1. Was a star in Division 1 after being a star in Division 2. Does that mean that he's NFL ready? I don't think so. I think Louisville runs a pro style offense. I am from Louisville originally, so I do have a favor. I do have my favorites on the University of Louisville team, and Jamari Thrash was one of them, even though he only played for 1 year. I think he looks NFL ready. 6'2", big guy, can make all the catches, strong hands. Will he get a lot of NFL playing time? I don't think so. Not in this offense, the way that it's lined up, but he's a good spot guy, and especially a slot receiver on third downs. So then I took Brandon Coleman. I took another offensive guard from TCU at number 123. Again, I'm way up here, and I'm putting more meat on the offensive line. And then at number 143, I took Tanner Bartolini. Tanner Bartolini is an elite run blocker, but he is only an okay pass blocker. And I know that that's a need. And I did have concerns about it, which is why I took Cooper Beebe when he was available a lot earlier. And it was also why I took Brandon Coleman, because we still need backups in those positions. So this is what I came up with in my draft. Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 3, Brock Bowers at number 9, Kingsley Sumataya at number 34, Darius Robinson at number 36, Tyler Nubin, safety in number 40, defensive tackle Michael Hall, number 67, Cooper Beebe, offensive guard from Kansas State at number 68, and then Blake Corum, running back out of Michigan at number 104, Jamari Thrash, wide receiver out of Louisville at number 111, Brandon Coleman, guard out of TCU at number 123, and then number 143, Tanner Bartolini, the center from Wisconsin. Now, is this the greatest draft ever? Yeah, probably. Yeah, it probably is. And I am just kidding, by the way, with that. But I do want to say that Marvin Harrison being a generational talent, being the guy, and Brock Bowers being the guy. I mean, this is the best tight end that we've seen since George Kittle for sure. And it might be one of the most elite college tight ends in the game in the last 20 years. Those two right there turn this into a big win in this draft. Now, I think Kingsley Suamataia is a big time offensive tackle out of Brigham Young. They build them big at Brigham Young. And then you've got edge rusher Darius Robinson, which I think fixes these. I really think that I fixed a whole lot of this team in 4 picks right there. And then I'm throwing Tyler Nubin in here. Would have liked somebody else, but I mean, you got to take what's available, right? And then Michael Hall as a little bit of change of pace at the defensive tackle. And then I put in 2 guards and a center. Then I got a new running back and a spot wide receiver coming out of a mid. I mean, look, I do want to say the HCC is a major league. Clemson's won a lot, but Louisville has only been kind of close. So they're playing good competition, but not elite competition. Now, it is true that Louisville beat up on Notre Dame this year, but I think they were really kind of lucky. Do you know what I mean? I don't think they would do that in a second game. Do you know what I'm saying? Chris Foster says would rather take a center at number 34. I would have too, but when I got to this, so my center options were Jackson Powers Johnson, Zach Frazier, or Cedric Van Pran, and it was not reasonable to reach so far down into the draft to get one of those guys when I know that I could probably use somebody that could compete with Braxton Jones at that offensive tackle position. Look, I like Braxton Jones. I like Braxton Jones. I'm a fan of him, but enough people have said to me that there might be like maybe he's not developing fast enough. There's enough people that have given me cause to say, if I can get a tackle up this high, let's go for it. So that's why I went with that instead of. And then when I started reaching down, then I was looking for a real center. And, by the time I got to 68, which I thought, by the way, Cedric Van Pran would be available around there. And I really was kind of hedging that it would be, that he would be a third round guy to begin with, the center out of Georgia. And he was not. He was taken in the 50s. So that's it. I think it is my opinion that that ended up being a pretty decent draft. I thought that, and Chris brings up that the late second. I thought he would slip into the third round because in the earlier drafts he had continued to slip into the third round, if you will. But that thing gets updated all of the time, and when it gets updated, people, because you're really, when you're simulating, what you're doing is every day you're upgrading, to what people are guessing about. And matter of fact, let's pop it up here, and you can see. So this is a draft right here. And then you got to look at, we're going to pop this up 1, 2, and then we got to take Chicago, and then boom. All right. So now we're on the clock here. And God damn it. I've done this twice now. So we're gonna do a quick draft here. I'm gonna pop this up on the screen here. Bump, bump, bump. Won't wanna, won't wanna. So this is kind of what it looks like, and they change overall. So if we're looking for that guy, so what I've generally done is I've rejected the Minnesota Vikings, I've rejected the Raiders, and I've gone with the Washington selection or New England, and I'm rejecting Denver, and we're just dealing with really these three options. I don't want that Atlanta deal. So the question right now is, do I take the pick number 2 or pick number 3 right here? So largely speaking, I've taken the number 2 overall, and then Washington ends up taking Caleb Williams. So now I've got the number 2. And in this draft, I'm not getting that extra selection. So I'm going to go Marvin Harrison. And now I'm at the number 9 pick, and I've got an offer for the number 20 and 51 or a number 15 and 46. I'm going to reject both of those because Brock Bowers is available. I'm taking him one more time. And now my pick is at 34. So I'm going to reject this and number 50. And you can see here on offense, this is where I come in the offense. See, Zach Frazier is down here at 46. Doesn't seem like a value at that position. I want to take a shot at getting him at 40 if he's available. So at my number 36, what I want is I do want to probably look for something where I'm going to reach not too much, but I'm looking at defensive tackles. I'm looking at on defense here. I got an edge rusher, Adisa Isaac but I mean, in this one, Darius Robinson is already gone. So now I'm going to look at, what do I want to do here? So I still want to shore up my line. So I'm going to go with Kingsley Suamatea. And then we're going to reject this potential trade right here. And then we're going to now reach down, and now we're going to take Zach Frazier. So I hope that satisfies. Powers Jackson he's too far up. There's just, it's very complicated to get to him because he's now considered probably a top 20 pick. So it's just so impossible to get to him that that Zach Frazier or Cedric Van Pran is the guy. And see, Cedric Van Pran is still here at number 67 this time, but he was gone off the list previously. So he's just too elite of an athlete. So at number 67 now, I'm looking for, what do I need really? And I need a running back. I do need a running back. So I'm going to take that running back. And then I'm going to pass on where I am right now. And I'm going to accept this trade with Washington again and get 2 more draft picks a little bit later on in the draft. Number 101 here. What am I taking here? Well, now I need, shit, guys, it becomes difficult right now. I need a safety. I need. I've got some position players. How about Thomas Harper out of Notre Dame? He clocks in a little low for that draft. Michael Hall, number 57. He comes back to me, so I'm going to take him. That's number 57 guy falling to number 100 in the draft. So easy to get him if you trade back from 9, but then it's hard to get Brock Bowers, and I would take Brock Bowers over Jackson Powers Johnson. I mean, again, I'm about getting the guy in the best position, which is why we just took Michael Hall, the number 57 overall player at number 101, because he is way undervalued at that position. So, if you're going to do it, if you're going to make your team the best that you can, you might as well take the best the best player available. And at this point, right now, at number 103, I've already gotten a running back. I've already gotten a tight end. I could take a linebacker, but if I'm going to take a linebacker, I would rather take this offensive tackle over here so that I've got some depth at the offensive tackle. So let's go with Blake Fisher out of Notre Dame. Now we've got the number 111, and we'll take James Williams at number 86. Now we've got a linebacker. And now, and by the way, I think that, Thomas Harper out of Notre Dame, there we go. Now he fits in. He's actually in that position right now. And then we got number 143 pick. And then Layden Robinson, Texas A&M. We're going to take a guard. And by the way, we're filling up the line at this point. Like that's really what I end up doing here, is I'm just kind of filling up this line to try to get more and more beef, if you will, so that we've got better pass protection, better run, and options to swap in and out. So at the end of this draft, I got 10 players, and I got the number 25, the number 1 Washington pick in 2025. So in this one, we end up with Marvin Harrison and Brock Bowers again, which was kind of fortunate to me. Kingsley Suamatea. Then we got Zach Frazier at number 40. Then we got Jonathan Brooks, running back out of Texas, at number 67. Michael Hall, again, defensive tackle. Blake Fisher, offensive tackle. James Williams, linebacker. Thomas Harper, safety out of Notre Dame. Layden Robinson. Now, what do I need to do in the free agency? In the free agency portion of this, I would obviously still need an edge rusher because I did not satisfy that edge rusher position at all. But I couldn't find, there was no good option. Like I couldn't get in. The best edge rushers were taken at these times. So I didn't get an edge rusher. So I'm going to need an edge rusher, and I'm going to need a safety. Even if I picked up Thomas Harper from Notre Dame, I don't assume that he's NFL ready if he's falling into the 4th round of the draft. So, or in the late 3rd round, I don't assume that he's going to be an NFL ready guy. Maybe he is. I could get lucky, but if it's after the 2nd round, those guys are probably not going to be NFL ready. So that's, these are every time I do this, guys, I come up with what I really want to do is I want to reach out and I want to make sure that I get Marvin Harrison Jr. Beyond that, I feel confident at that number 9 selection that I'm going to get a good guy no matter what. Like I always feel like I've got a shot with that, no matter what I do. And by the way, let me also state that if we were to, let's just say, reject everything here and take Caleb Williams, that number 9 selection right there, just want to show you, like, based on this is the available haul that you could still have. You could potentially have Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunzi, Luatu Latu, JC Latham, Talise Fuaga, Jared Verse, Keon Coleman, Quinion Mitchell, Jackson Powers Johnson, who is now number 20 overall in this draft. And then you have Chop Robinson, the edge rusher out of Penn State. So you still have a magnificent haul. And to me, I think Malik Neighbors is the number 2 receiver in this draft to begin with. So no matter what you end up doing in this draft, even if you were to just make the picks, we could take Caleb Bullock out of USC here. Then we still get Caleb Williams and Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunzi. Like there are still big time players that are available. Braylon Allen, big running back out of Wisconsin. Then let's go with Thomas Harper again. And then reject that. And we're going to take Tanner Bottoloni. Why I keep coming up with that center? Anyway, so the idea is basically, here we go. Caleb Williams, Malik Neighbors, Caleb Bullock, Braylon Arlen. I shouldn't have taken that one, but I would have done it if I had thought about it anyway. So anyway, that's it, guys. That's, so that offensive, that sure, except that I still have free agency. So you're judging in that context, you would be judging that draft without having the benefit of free agency, which opens in a couple days, which is not going to have anything to do with the draft, but how we fill in the rest of the roster. What if we fixed everything through the draft, or what if we fixed a couple of big things through the draft? So we really fly blind when we're trying to do these picks and try to figure out what we're going to do. So anyway, but Guys, thank you so much for coming in today. I appreciate each and every one of you. Take the time, if you would, make sure you hit the like button on the way out, and make sure, if you would, to leave a comment on the video down below on your way out, just to say hi, or if you like the content, just mention it down there, because I think YouTube really looks for a couple things. They look for, if you're subscribed, if you hit the like button, and if you leave a comment. If you do all three, that helps me out tremendously and continues to send this video out to other people who come in and engage with me all day long. And it certainly helps me out. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow. I can't wait till Friday. Everybody's getting sideways.